Authors, people who are wanting to write a book, those who have a book out there, listen up. Did you know that there used to be about 400,000 books a year that were published, and today it's over 1 million books a year? So it has never been more important to make sure that your book is positioned well, that you are understanding the publishing industry and how things are moving right now. Otherwise, your great book could get lost in a sea of not so great books that had better marketing plans or better hooks or better angles or a better platform. We want to make sure that your books are going to win. I'm Amy Walker, small business strategist, and welcome to my channel. If you're here for the first time, subscribe and hit the bell notifications so you can get notified every time we release new content. And I'm excited to introduce you to Angela Eschler. Angela, welcome. We're excited to have you on with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yes, well, Angela has done so many things in her career. She is the founder of the award-winning Eschler Editing. She has more than 20 years of experience in the publishing industry as an editor and as a writing coach. Additionally, as a published author, Angela's work has been featured on television, radio, and in documentary film. And she really knows the ins and outs of the publishing industry. She has worked in traditional publishing, and now she works with a lot of freelance and indie authors. She works with a lot of business owners who are trying to use a book in order to position themselves professionally. And she's here today to tell us the ins and outs of everything that we need to know. I mean, writing a book is a lot of work, and I don't know about you, but I have seen a lot of authors that have handed me their books. In fact, I was at a speaking event once, and this gentleman came up to me and he was telling me a story, and his story was so compelling. I thought, I've got to get you on my radio show. And then he handed me his book, and I read it on the plane home, and I went, just kidding. Nope. It was a bad book, and it did not do him any favors professionally. So I'm excited to have you on so we can talk about how to be a profitable author and create a book that is really going to help position us and our businesses to grow. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. We're excited. Our job is to make sure that you don't put out a bad book. So that's kind of what we focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off our conversation. This is going to be the first video in a two-part series. Let's start off our conversation by talking about publishing trends. It's really different now than it was probably 10, 15 years ago. And I feel like there's a lot more education that authors need to know to figure out what's the right path for them to take for their publishing goals.
Yeah. So let's talk first about if we want to focus on nonfiction right now, because that's really dialed into a very specific kind of audience and market for each book. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we need to know is that your book has a purpose. So not only is your book supposed to have content that helps change people's lives, but you want to help them change their lives in a particular direction. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're just writing a memoir and you want to start a movement or change something in the world that's wrong, and justice needs to be served and people need to have help. But even if you're running a business and you want to expand your platform with having a lot more people find you because you've got a book out there, the first thing you need to understand is that kind of the three big paths to publishing now, because those will kind of inform your goals of how you approach your book and your book process and your book timeline and kind of everything about it. So traditional publishing is the one that's been around forever, hundreds of years. And that is where you write a book and then you try to find an agent who is kind of like a gatekeeper for that industry, who says to you, yes, this book is good enough. I'm going to now go pitch it to publishers. Mm-hmm. And their job is to help you find the publisher that's a good fit for your book. So obviously, if you have a self-help book on gardening, you're not going to be pitching it to a children's book publisher, right? And so those agents have special relationships with different publishers. They're very genre specific. So you also don't want to be pitching your book to the wrong agent. Mm-hmm. The pros of traditional publishing are that, it's got this established distribution network. You've got a big 5 publishing name on your book. It looks very legit. And you don't have to pay for all the editing, design, production, cover, back copy, all of those professional pieces of marketing that take some experience and knowledge to get right. The downside is that it can take 1 to 10 years to get traditionally published, and that's if you're doing everything right and learning everything you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very competitive market now, especially a lot of the publishers keep buying each other out. So it gets to be smaller and smaller in terms of the competition,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like how many books they'll take on. And so you have to really know your game to understand how to write a book that appeals to traditional publishers. And you have to be building a platform at the same time to have a lot of people that are interested in your content, so that when you approach that agent and then those publishers, that you can show that you've got interested people and you know what you're doing with your marketing and everything else.
Right.
And so a lot of people, that's very hard for them, you know, waiting and waiting and waiting. And even when your book does get picked up, it can be 1 to 3 years just with a contract with that publisher to see it on the shelves, because they're spending 6 months to a year prepping the marketing for all of those books, in addition to all the production and the editing and everything else. So if you're raring to get going on your, you know, new business or to expand your business, that's a long wait for that book to come out and make its
Yeah.
impact. So a
Well,
lot of people
another
choose,
thing
oh, go ahead.
about that too is that if you've got a book that's like a hot topic right now,
Yes.
it's that wave will have passed by the time your book hits the shelves if you go traditional.
And sometimes a traditional publisher will speed up its timeline for something like that, but you literally have to be a big name in the industry. You need to be someone that's already kind of famous, or you already have a huge platform. They're not super likely to speed it up for the brand new author who is untried and untested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of the traditional publishing. Let's talk about the other options. If someone's listening to that and going, because I know this is me, like when I want a book to go out, I don't want to have to wait for 1 to 10 years. That sounds ridiculously painful.
Right. Right. So you gotta have a lot of patience. So the next path, that's kind of the big path that a lot of, especially nonfiction authors take, is self-publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And what that looks like is a broad range, from very DIY looking, right? Or the content's very DIY, so it's not going to represent you well professionally,
Mm-hmm.
to it can be done as well as if you were doing it with traditional publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously who you hire to help with those things, all of that will affect your end product. With self-publishing, the pros obviously are that you can get your book out there way faster. Even if you're doing it super professionally, as if you were a traditional publisher, you can still have the book out there in less than a year, including your editing,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually really fast. It sounds like a long time, but that's really fast to have a quality product and a marketing plan and everything done well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get your book out there, you can get it out there faster, and you control also all the marketing and branding and everything else, which is great if you know what you're doing and you've done your research. Then you get to control whether you drop the price to get it in a major promotion website, newsletter or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get to control how that book makes its impact, which is fantastic. And with self-publishing, there's kind of these break-offs where you can also do a hybrid publisher, which is basically one of the big five decided to partner with someone. Usually it's a company called Author Solutions, and they offer self-publishing services.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's called a hybrid publisher. And basically it's the same as, you know, professional self-publishing, except that they'll say that they'll kind of watch those products, and if any of them are doing really well, they might offer you a contract at the traditional publisher.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people are actually getting deals with that, but it is something that they say they'll offer.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you might hear, and this is what most professional authors are doing today, is hybrid. You're a hybrid author, which is different than a hybrid publisher. So a hybrid author is someone that takes advantage of both self-publishing and traditional publishing. So they've become good enough writers and they understand their market well enough that they've got traditional publishers putting out some of their work, and anything they need to bring to market faster, they have their own imprint for, and they're putting out self-published books in the meantime. So they're not, they're getting the best of both worlds, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what most professionals are doing today. So.
Awesome. I love it. You know, one thing that I think is really important is oftentimes I see people come to me and they say, you know, I've got a book and I need to now build a plan to sell more of this book. Or they'll come to me and they're like, yeah, I have this idea for this book, but they don't really know what comes next. And I
Mhm.
love that when you guys are working with people, you're first of all helping them to get their book really ready. We're going to talk about that more in part 2 of this. Like, how do you get your book ready so that it is sellable and it has a market and people will want to buy it? But also, you help them kind of look a little bit farther ahead to make sure that there's a game plan for this book. Because
Mhm.
my first book, although I think it's a really good book and everyone, all, 1,000 people that have bought that book over the last 5 years have given me great feedback on it. It does nothing for my business because it's like this one random stepchild that doesn't lead into anything else. And so for me, it doesn't make sense for me to promote that book when I could be promoting something that leads into clients or leads into speaking gigs, but it just doesn't lead anywhere. So it's almost like I wrote the wrong book, or maybe it's the right book, but at the wrong time. And
Mhm.
so can you talk a little bit about that, like some strategies that you can look through up front so that you make sure you get a book that has somewhere it can go?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing to do is to really understand your audience and who you're writing it for, right? And I think you shared an example with me the other day, and I'll share a quick one. But I was looking for a book to help train my new puppy to not have anxiety, because I had had a dog years ago with severe anxiety who was a shelter dog, and that was really hard. And when I was out looking for books, I came across a book called From Fearful to Fear Free, a positive program to free your dogs from anxiety, fears, and phobias. And my thought was, oh, that would have been a great book to have when I had my other dog, right? But I'm looking for a dog to help, or a book to train a dog not to have that. Well, I hired a PhD dog behavioralist to help me make sure this dog was raised right. And one of the books that came across my screen after talking with her and that she was recommending was this book. So I looked into it more and realized most of this book was about training your puppy from the beginning.
Uh-huh.
So if that book had been called something like Fear-Free Dogs, From Puppy Training to Healing Anxious Pets, I would have known instantly, oh, that book is for me. It's what I'm looking for.
Right.
And that's the biggest mistake we see authors make when they write a book is they think, I want to write about a topic, and
Mhm.
their topic is like fear in dogs, right? But you are not writing to everyone in the whole world who ever had interest in fear and or dogs, right? You're writing to someone who has a very specific problem that they need to solve. So your title, your subtitle, your back copy, your cover imagery, and all of your text inside needs to be very carefully geared toward a very specific market that you can talk to. So if it's like, say it's single parents, is it
Mhm.
single fathers, single mothers? Are they divorced? Are they widowed? What age are their kids? Like, you have to get really specific into who you're talking to, and then you need to make sure everything you're doing is geared toward them, and that you also have next steps planned for them in that book. So you're giving them principles and information, but what do you want them to do next? Join your course for how to become a stronger parent,
Mhm.
or a parent support group, or you want them to join a movement. So you need to use your book as if it were kind of like a little business plan that's
Mhm.
going to help people and change their lives, but it's going to take them somewhere on a journey of transformation.
Yeah, I am a huge believer in this, having done it the wrong way. And then my second book being like, I will not write another book until I have a plan for this book, because it is a lot of time and energy and effort to take all of those ideas and organize them and put them to paper in order to create something that you hope is going to grow your business. And I think so many of us have multiple books inside of us that
Mm-hmm.
sitting down with someone like Angela and her team to talk through your book idea and your book strategy and make sure that it has a game plan, I think it's just such a worthwhile investment of your time, so you can save yourself the hassle of writing. Because once you've got a book out there that's not right, there's really not much you can do to fix that. If it doesn't fit with your business or it doesn't lead anywhere, you just kind of have this one oddball book that's like, it's there. You get, I don't know about the rest of the authors out there, but I get my $4 checks from Amazon from time to time. And it's just not nearly as exciting as getting a client because they say, oh my gosh, I read your book and I know that you're the next person I need to work with.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole lot more fun.
Right. And the right book will open doors.
Mhm.
More than just any money that you would make on the book itself, it opens a lot of doors for media, for interviews, for credibility. A lot of clients, I've had quite a few clients tell me that they're not really hugely marketing their book to sell the book itself. Like they'll sell at the back of the room and whatnot, but the book is this huge door opener for them
Mhm.
to increase what people know about them and who's coming to them, and they'll pay off what they invest in their book within just a few clients
Yeah.
because those people found them through that book.
Yeah.
So you really want to make sure that that is going to give you the clients or the movement potential or whatever it is to make all that effort worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anything else that they should know about the publishing industry? I think it might be useful to kind of talk about marketing expectations, because I know I was originally interested in, before I spoke with your team, I was originally interested in traditional publishing because I thought they would help market the book and we would get into more stores and all of that. And then realizing that wasn't exactly the case, it was very clear that was probably not going to be the right path for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so because of self-publishing, the market has changed dramatically.
Mhm.
These days, almost every author needs to learn to be a marketer, and that's kind of a bummer because lots of people just want to be writers, right? But it's kind of the thing now that a publisher actually won't even take you on unless they can see that you have a book proposal with a marketing plan. So you know what your comparable titles are. You know how you're similar to certain books in the market that are doing well because they know that you can then speak to those same types of people, but they know how your angle is different and fresh and new, and so you can make a splash with the media and stand out, right? You need to know a fair bit about online marketing. You need to understand how to talk to your audience the most. I mean, this is something we've been talking about,
Mhm.
and how to use their language even, in your book and everything else. If you're using industry lingo in a book that's to teach a layperson something, you're not speaking correctly to that audience, and they're going to lose you, right? They don't understand you. You're not speaking to them. So it's kind of like everything about your book and your plan and your marketing needs to be about understanding your audience, where they are, how you're going to find them. You might spend like 60% of your time marketing if you're self-publishing and like 40% of your time marketing if you're traditional publishing. But traditional publishers really expect you to bring that, and they actually expect you to have a platform in place already, particularly for nonfiction.
Mhm.
It's a lot more rare now to get your book published without already having an audience that's following you and on your newsletter list and waiting for what you have to say, right? Because they kind of want to bet on the horse that looks like it's going to win. And so they don't want to just take a big chance. If they're looking at you and someone else and you're both writing a great book about a similar topic and they have 200,000 followers and you have 7, they're
Right.
going to go, well, let's go with this gal over here, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it comes down to, is you really need to understand that you will be marketing, because if you're trying to make money with a book, whether it's to bring in clients or to pay for the cost even that you put it into the production, then
Mhm.
you have to treat it like a business. So it's not just I write something and I throw it out in the world. I have to treat that product like a business piece. So
Well,
you will have to do that.
if someone is listening and they're like, oh, I just wanted to write, well, guess what? This is how all course creators feel too, right?
Yep.
This is how all inventors feel. This is
Mm-hmm.
basically the story of every business owner everywhere, is you have to honor your creation, your product, your service enough to get it to market by having a solid business plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I so appreciate everything you're saying. In our next video, in part 2, we're going to talk specifically about what you need to do from the beginning with your book in order to have it positioned and written in a way that it is going to be marketable and that is going to fly off the shelves, hopefully, because people actually want to read it. Writing a book that sells is our next topic of conversation. So if you are new to the channel, subscribe and hit the bell notification, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking here. And then, of course, go watch part 2. We'll see you in a second, everyone.